one other person.
I like my chances. I like my chances of winning the trivia today, Charlie. I like them real good. Sports Lounge 169. Charlie Hildebrand there. Travis Gridden's here. There's a Game 7 this afternoon. Raptors and Heat. How excited are you for Raptors Heat Game 7? I wish it could go 13 games. That's how excited I am.
I mean, I'm more excited than if it was Game 4. It's at least a Game 7. And you know what? I think it's going to be the crowning achievement for the winning team, because I don't think the team that wins is getting out of the next round.
There's a special place for hell for people watching this Miami and Toronto garbage. I mean, this has been awful. I hope Miami wins. It's at Toronto. They're trying to win 2 Game 7s in a row. I would much rather see Miami and Cleveland than Cleveland in Toronto.
I would as well, and it is not because of any love for Miami or hatred for Toronto. It's just that it's the interesting storyline of Cleveland and LeBron playing against the team that he played for in between his 2 trips in Cleveland.
That would be nice. Speaking of the town and the city, there was a 30 for 30 last night. Believeland, all about Cleveland and how awful they are. I believe there used to be a hockey team in Cleveland, but they never mentioned that. I think there was at one time.
I thought there was too. I didn't know. Like, I know some stuff about the NHL. I could name all the teams in the other 3 major sports. I could not sit down and name all the NHL teams, though. I know there's not one in Cleveland right now.
I'm going to look that up there. I thought there was one.
There certainly could have been. Wouldn't surprise me, because the boring guy I am at times, I looked up Cleveland on Wikipedia and looked at how their population had shifted over the last 50 or 60 years. And that if you go just within the city limits, like all cities, if you go the metro area, they're way, way, way bigger. But like Cleveland was up to like 800,000 or 900,000 people in like the 50s, just in the city limits. And now it's down to like 300,000. Now, if you go metro area, it's still like 2 million people, so it's still big. But yeah, it would make sense when there were fewer hockey teams, that when Cleveland was a large city in the upper Midwest, that they probably would have had one.
The Cleveland Barons were a hockey team. Looks like they were a hockey team in the NHL from 76 to 78, so I'll say that's 2 seasons. They were a relocation of the California Golden Seals. They were a hockey team in Oakland since 67, so about 9 or 10 years. The California Golden Seals become the Cleveland Barons, and then the team merged with the Minnesota North Stars, now the Dallas Stars. So there you go.
Gotta say, Barons is a pretty good nickname or mascot for a team. I wish there was another Barons somewhere.
Birmingham Barons, AA for that's where Michael Jordan played, but we need some professional Barons here. Interesting note here. They say the Barons remain the last franchise in the 4 major North American sports to cease operations. So just not move or change names or whatever, but just completely
stop.
We're done.
Interesting.
And I don't know.
And you bring up the Birmingham Barons. When you think about it, it makes sense that Birmingham's a 1AA team and not the highest level, because Baron is not like the highest level of royalty. So that actually works out perfectly.
They're second or third. Chances that you would ever see a team just not be around anymore. I mean, this was, 78? So 35, 40 years ago almost.
I think anymore it's pretty unlikely. I mean, obviously not including like lower level sports, but you have the 4 biggest, because if something doesn't work out, you can just go somewhere else. And there's always some city that either doesn't have that specific sports franchise, or they just don't have any, and they would gladly take one.
This Cleveland 30 for 30 documentary focused on the failures of the Browns, the Indians, Cleveland Cavaliers, how they've gotten so close to winning the championships throughout the last 40 years. 1964, Cleveland Browns' last championship that the city has won. They had a UFC fighter last night that was born in Ohio. He claims Cleveland. He won the heavyweight title, so they're going nuts for that. But as far as team sports here, they haven't won in a long time, 50 years here, over 50 years. What did you think? I thought it was a pretty good look at their awfulness.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. I have found that there's lots of different ways they do the 30 for 30s. The ones I like are just kind of like this, where it's just like an overview of a certain team or a certain thing just over many years, and you get the big highlights that stick out, the years that matter. So I enjoyed that. Go ahead.
You said you had some, I don't know, criticisms or certain things that you wanted to highlight.
There were a few things, and they're all minor. I mean, these aren't things that make me like angry or not enjoy it. I still enjoyed it, but and you can find these in almost all of these because you're generally talking to people that are biased towards a certain team or individual or event or something. But I know one of the guys they routinely showed, an older guy who at times they showed in like a cafe with his son, and then at times just like sitting in a chair in his living room, it looked like. Anyways, one of the times sitting in his living room, they were talking about the Cleveland Browns and how, like, I think they had hired Marty Schottenheimer, and they went from being, not all that great to improving to the point that they were actually pretty good and truly Super Bowl contenders. And I remember he said something to the effect of like, and then we got Bernie Kosar, and that kid, he's just a special player. And I was like, that's a pretty loose definition of special. I mean, I think most people would say like Bernie Kosar was fine in the NFL. I don't think anyone's like knocking down to get him in the Hall of Fame, or I don't think anyone outside of Cleveland is I need to get this Bernie Kosar jersey or football card or anything like that.
A few people were crying during the thing. Marty Schottenheimer, that old guy you're talking about, when I think it was when LeBron came back, and they were talking about that. And you're like, oh, LeBron? Oh, he's back. I found interesting that they mentioned Pittsburgh in the 70s and how they're similar towns, and how Pittsburgh, they won Super Bowls and World Series, multiple ones in the 70s. And look at Pittsburgh. They're thriving, apparently. And Cleveland.
And it's clearly because of, I had forgotten about that. But, that would be another one I'd toss in there, that I think that
really?
There's more to it than that.
Because the Browns and the Indians didn't win a championship in the 70s means your town now has lost half its population in the last 50 years.
I don't know if I would put this town necessarily as bad as Cleveland, but I think there have been plenty, if you go both football and baseball, plenty of titles won by Oakland over the last 40 years or so, and no one's like, man, look how great Oakland is. In fact, for them, it's like, oh, look at that city across the bay. That's much, much nicer than our city is.
I think what they started with the Browns, Indians didn't get. The Indians had like one segment there. They went back to the Browns again, and they moved, and they had LeBron James there, I think, at the end with the finals last year. The Cleveland thing, the Cleveland moving could have been its own show by itself. I think NFL Network did a thing on it about an hour a couple years ago, and I think like the 86-87 Browns season, those two, that could be a 30 for 30 right there with John Elway with the fumble the one year and then the drive the year before. I think they could all branch out and do a show on each of those.
They could, and again, I did enjoy this one, and I don't want to nitpick everything. But one thing that they were also talking about, how like they wanted to go to the Super Bowl and everything, and how if the Browns would have won those two games, they would have gone to the Super Bowl. I do not think they would have won either one, though. I think they would have been slaughtered as bad as the Broncos were. I don't remember who it was those 2 years. One of them, I'm pretty sure, was the 49ers. The other one, it might have been the Washington Redskins. It might have been somebody else. I don't remember, but both at that point in time, every Broncos Super Bowl, they got just annihilated. And you know what? Even giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe the Browns would have lost by 14 less points. You're still losing by double digits. And so, it kind of is nice if they would have gone to the Super Bowl, but then it would just be like the Indians or the Cavaliers, where it's like, yeah, we got there, and then we didn't win.
I did like when they focused a little bit on the stadium when they were talking about the Indians, and I was like an 80,000 seat stadium, and it was just awful, and there was nobody there. They're just the biggest piece of crap you've ever seen in your life.
They show on the camera that the ceiling's falling apart and everything. That was fun. One thing, and I know that Cleveland, the Browns left, intellectually I know and realize that, but just always forget because it was such a short period of time that Cleveland wasn't there. That they went to a commercial and they came back and they were talking about Art Modell and all this stuff, and I was like, wonder why they're talking about Art Modell. And then one of the guys who I think was a radio personality in Cleveland said something and man, I just never thought that he'd ever move the team. And I was just like, that's right. I forgot they did move. And then it all clicked in my head and I was like, oh, and Baltimore's won 2 Super Bowls since then. And I was just like, that's right. That probably makes them even more upset.
Apparently the storyline they went with was Art Modell kicked Paul Brown and Jim Brown out of town when he bought the team way back in the 60s. And he gave a lot of money to the city of Cleveland and helped with all these projects. And then when it was his time, when he wanted his stadium, they couldn't get it done. So he left and he goes to Baltimore. And his son was the real asshole since Art Modell, he's dead now. But his son was the real asshole of the thing here. Because they left in 95. They knew before the end of the year they were going to leave. Then in January in 96, they showed some guy signing something saying Cleveland football will come back as an expansion team 3 years from now. So his son's like, well, when you think about it, Cleveland, they just didn't play for 3 years and they still got a team. So what's the big fucking deal? I'm like, dude, what an asshole this guy is. My God, this guy was the biggest piece of shit I saw all day long yesterday. Awful.
Technically, they did get a team back, but it was not.
Yes.
They were the same in name and uniform, not in terms of talent and ability.
And they really didn't mention at all this latest edition of the Cleveland Browns at all. They didn't focus on that at all because they really haven't come close to winning anything. So
yeah, nor the Indians since they lost to the Marlins.
Yeah,
both of those. It was kind of yep. Nothing to see after the mid-90s.
15, 20 years ago, and there's nothing there.
About the time of the Monica Lewinsky thing, that was when we didn't need any more Indians or any more Browns.
Nobody else is here, so I guess I'll pose the question to you. Will LeBron James ever win an NBA title in Cleveland?
It's a good question.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
On the 30 for 30 thing, there was a point in time where they talked about the Cavaliers earlier, and they showed, Jordan hitting the shot over Elo, and then kind of quit talking about him. And I kind of got the sense that, they were sort of starting to wrap things up, and I was like, are they not going to talk about the LeBron thing? Which they did, which was good. But for a second, I was worried. I was like, this instantly becomes awful if you don't even, mention this whole thing. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And, well, I don't know. Because this is the thing. If he stays in Cleveland for the next 5 or 6 years,
a bit.
I think they could. But and I'm not an expert on contracts and don't pay that close of attention to them. But my understanding is LeBron James could decide to go somewhere else after this season's over and not return to Cleveland, correct?
Yeah, he's got that opt-out.
Like a player option or something?
Because with the proposed lockout coming up in 2 years or next off season, and with the television money and the salary cap going to escalate quite a bit, he wants to get as much money as possible. So
part of me, I mean, I don't know. Like, I could see.
He will be 32 years old December 30th.
A few
31
things.
now. 32.
I'm not a LeBron James expert. I like LeBron fine. He's never been like my favorite player in the NBA, but I certainly don't have anything against him. I think he's from Akron, and they keep saying like Cleveland, that's Cleveland, and it's like, yeah, I mean that's sort of like a suburb, I guess. But Akron's different, and I mean I don't know. I think that he probably would like to win in Cleveland, but more than that, I think he probably wants to get paid well and he wants to win titles. And if he decides that it's going to be harder to win in Cleveland as opposed to somewhere else, I would not be surprised if he went somewhere else. I think, I don't know, you could talk better on if you think the Cleveland Cavaliers as constructed right now could win a title. I mean, like I could, but you follow the NBA closer than I do. But like, I don't know. I could just see a scenario where like, you know, they lose in Game 5 or Game 6 to get eliminated by the Golden State Warriors, and then it's just like, you know, LeBron's going through a lot of work, and it's better than it was before, where he had nobody around him. But he's getting older and he can't do the same things, so. I don't know. I will go out on a limb and make some decision instead of just rambling. I will say that they do not win a title this year, but he does stay in Cleveland, and within the next 3 to 4 years, they make at least they do something smart, either free agent or draft wise, and find a way to win a title. Because the thing that's missing from most of these, like, oh no, we're Cleveland and we lost, is like Jim Brown was probably the best player in the NFL when he played for the Browns. Since then, I don't think Cleveland, other than LeBron with the Cavaliers, has ever had the guy that was like, this guy's the guy and the best. Now, if you want to say like there were some guys for the Indians that were pretty good and were maybe the best, I don't, you know, they had some guys that were pretty good and maybe, but like they never had the guy that was like, yeah, this guy is so incredibly good. And, you know, and LeBron might not be the best player in the NBA, but he's one of the 3 best. And I don't know if any of these other Cleveland teams ever, you know, since the Browns or since Jim Brown left, had a guy that was one of the 3 best guys in their.
Well, besides Bernie Kosar.
Besides,
and, and Bartolo Colon. Those are their own categories.
Nope, nobody was better at throwing that pass to the running back in the flat on 2nd and 7 than Kosar.
That's right.
He was the check down son of a gun.
They're not, you know, probably not going to win it this year. Golden State's probably going to win another one. It should be a good series. Cleveland's got all their guys healthy now. That should be fun, and hopefully Golden State has all their guys healthy. So probably not going to be this year. If Golden State's just as good as, you know, similar to what they have been the last couple of years, they might win a 3rd next year. Probably won't win a 4th, since that's really tough, and nobody's done that besides the Celtics back in the 60s. So at that point, if he doesn't win it in the next 2 years, then I would say he's probably going to leave again. And I don't think you can come back a 3rd time. And even if you do, you're going to be 35, 36 years old anyway, and you're not going to be what you once were. Because Kobe had a lot of mileage there. And once he got to 36, 37 years old, coming out of high school, he put in his 18, 19, 20 years. And once he was done, he was done. It fell off pretty quick and swift for him. So LeBron's probably he's 31 right now. He's probably got 5 years left. You get him at 36. Anything you get from him after 36, coming out of high school, it's quite a bit to ask there in his 17th, 18th season in the league. So, and they talk about this team, like him and Dwayne Wade and Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony want to get together and form another team when they're all in their 30s, 35, and they're all old in hell, and they're not as good anymore like the Celtics. But When he went to where do you remember seeing that when he went to Miami and watching that?
I do. That was that first summer I worked in the SID office, and I remember like I don't want to watch this. I don't care. And then there was like absolutely nothing on TV, and I had nothing to do anyways. And I ended up watching it just solely because it was like, well, there's nothing else on TV that I care about. So I guess, and like, I didn't watch the whole thing. I think it was like half an hour, and I turned it there with like 10 or 15 minutes left. So I did watch it.
I want to say like I was without internet or cable for like a week when that happened. So I went to the office to watch the end of it, to see it. And I brought it up on the computer there somehow.
The Bulls were one of the potential landing spots that people thought he might go to, right?
In the mix, yeah. Bulls, they showed the Nets and the Knicks on the deal there.
I don't think he was going to the Knicks ever.
There was one, it was Rachel Nichols had a deal there they showed, and it was like, I don't even know what the hell it was. LeBron, I don't even know what something's going on in New York or New Jersey, or he's got offices there, or he's meeting with somebody, or something happened.
That's right. And it was like it was like they're meeting at a hotel in New Jersey, so that doesn't hurt the New Jersey Nets odds of getting them or something like that.
Jersey ain't going to any of those teams, for God's sakes. And looking back at it, he probably picked the right team to go to. And maybe this is a contract thing, but Dwayne Wade was still there. Bosh was there. Bosh, the trivia of it all is Bosh was actually the highest paid player of the three by a little bit, but he was.
Interesting.
And LeBron was. Why couldn't LeBron have stayed in Cleveland and brought Dwayne Wade and Bosh with him? Bosh was a free agent. Dwayne Wade, he may have been under contract yet, so that may have been the reason why. I mean, you could always do a sign and trade, which I think is how LeBron got there anyway. Signed him, traded him, Cleveland got something for him. But I was always interesting that he had to go to Miami. Why couldn't these other guys have come to Cleveland?
It's a good point. I know it seemed like there's sort of an element in the big three sports. I'm not going to talk about hockey just because I don't follow hockey at all.
Because you said big three, that's why.
That's why I said big three, yeah. But like there's a little bit of this in the NFL and in Major League Baseball, but way more in the NBA, that for some reason they're like, no, we got to go to this city. And I just am not sure I completely understand it. I mean, like if you're in Milwaukee and you just want to get out of Milwaukee, like I would understand that, but I don't understand like we need to go to New York. It's important for me to be in New York. And it's like, well, the Knicks suck. Why do you want to go there? You know, you could go to like
like the Lakers. They're like, oh, the Lakers, Los Angeles. Oh, well,
yeah, like when they were good, it would make sense because it's like, sure, they can pay me a boatload of money and maybe I'll see some famous people, which could be neat. But, you know, mostly, like, I'm going to win a lot of games and have a chance to win titles. But, like, I just don't I remember, like, when Chris Paul was leaving the Hornets or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They've changed names enough times recently. I don't know where they were, if they were even called the Hornets then. But it was just that I remember people were like, nah, he just wants to get to that big city. And it's like, you know, they're all big cities. I mean, other than like the Green Bay Packers and the NFL, like these are all like none of them are a small city. Like you can, if you want to go somewhere where it's warmer, like I can understand that, but you're still going to have to travel to the cold places, and I just don't get the going. It seems like it's the most in the NBA because people are always talking about that with the Knicks. Like there's something special about New York City compared to these other cities. And I would just be like, I would just want to go somewhere where I could win games, and the Knicks are so bad. And why would anyone even want Carmelo Anthony? Because he sucks and he's not that good anymore. And he's going to go out and he's going to get his 28 points and doesn't care about anything else. And why would you even want to deal with that?
Michael Jordan, biggest star ever, Chicago. But third largest city in the country, pretty big deal. But it's not New York. It's not Los Angeles. and I think he did just fine as far as the marketing and the commercials are concerned. Peyton Manning, you see his face on every goddamn commercial there is, and he spent his career in fucking Indianapolis, for God's sakes. Indianapolis.
In Denver, but yeah,
Okay.
neither of them are in the top 5 for the largest cities.
So
I
if
think
you're good,
what's his
then you're
name?
good.
Kevin Durant had some movie he was in with some little kid or something, and gets plenty of endorsement deals. I don't think Oklahoma City's cracking on the top 15 of most populated cities.
No. There's
In
a
fact, I think that's the only professional sport in Oklahoma City.
or in the entire state. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Good point.
There was a bomb scare at a UK soccer game today, and they had to evacuate the whole thing. So I don't know if it was real or not. They had to evacuate the whole thing, soccer match, so they couldn't see the guys not score goals. So they'll probably have to make that game up somehow.
You wouldn't want to be in a place when a bomb goes off. That's my my bomb expertise.
Tip of the day: get out of the way of the bombs.
So, do you think Cleveland's going to win a title with LeBron? I shouldn't even say with LeBron. I should say they're not going to win one without him. So, do you think that they're going to win one in the next few years?
I don't think it's going to be next month, and I don't think it's going to be next year either. I mean, they've got Kevin Love and Irving, so they've got the little deal here. So if he doesn't win one here in the next 2 years, that would be his 3 years back in Cleveland. At that time, he'd be 33 years old. And I don't know. It's not the next 2 years. I would say no. Which is,
Do you think that the Cavaliers should have, what's his name? Do you think that they should have just drafted Andrew Wiggins and not got Kevin Love? And do you think that would make any difference in the Cavaliers going forward?
Right now, that's looking like a better trade for the Timberwolves all the time. Considering Love missed the playoffs last year and he just doesn't fit in there for some reason. Always played well this playoffs, and Cleveland's looked better than anybody, despite playing the fucking Hawks and the Pistons. And the thing was, though, they got to win now. We got to win now. And then I thought, Andrew Wiggins, I think he'd be good enough to fit in there now. And I think they would be just as good with Wiggins as a second-year player or rookie last year than Kevin Love, since his production has dropped off quite significantly. So I'd say if they had to do it over, they probably would, depending on, if they win it this year, then say, it was worth it. But if they don't, then they'll probably say, whoops.
I know way back when people were discussing this and it was kind of thought like they might get Love, they might not. What are they going to do? I remember one of the things I read that I thought was interesting was if they get Wiggins, they could basically say, okay, you are going to guard the best offensive player for the other team, as long as it's not, a power forward or a center. So you're going to be the guy that's running back and forth and has to play or attempt to play A+ defense. This way we can have LeBron guard the second or third best guy that they've got. Still would obviously have to put forth effort defensively, but not the same as guarding the other team's best player. And I just thought that was interesting, and I wonder how that would look now. Because, like you mentioned earlier, he's got a lot of mileage on those legs. Because, I think the Cavs didn't make the playoffs his first year. I don't remember if it was his second or third year they made the playoffs. And but I would basically say, his last 2 years with Cleveland, the first stint in Cleveland. Since then, they've basically made the Eastern Conference Finals every year except one, I think. And you start adding up all those playoff games, it's like he's played another 2 or 3 seasons anyways. And then and then since he came right out of high school, he didn't have the 2, 3, 4 years in college where you're only playing 30 games instead of 82. That it really, it was something that I remember people talking about and I never paid much attention to and thought it was stupid. And then you saw it with Kobe, who was just one of the best athletes the NBA's ever seen, that he got to his, mid-30s, and it's just like, yep, he doesn't have this any. Like, he can still play it, he's fine, but he cannot accelerate. He can't jump into the air and levitate like he used to. He's just like a guy that's got to rely on cutting and making jump shots now.
And he's never had a real big injury either. LeBron hasn't, and Kobe didn't until the knee stuff and the Achilles stuff, and then his last 2-3 years were basically lost. So we'll see what happens with Cleveland, and with the Andrew Wiggins thing. It'd be a deal where if LeBron's there for 3, 4, or 5 years, well, that's when Wiggins would be entering his prime. So instead of it being all LeBron or all nothing, at least you would have a guy there to take over for him, and you could have an all-star type guy. And I got a feeling when LeBron leaves, everybody's leaving. So they kind of screwed the pooch on that too. So you don't have that next guy in waiting for Cleveland. So
hypothetically, like, I'm sure Cleveland fans would love to win a title regardless. But let's say it's Cleveland against Golden State in the finals this year.
yeah.
Cleveland sweeps whoever in the Eastern Conference Finals, gets there healthy and rested. KC go 7 games. Curry, was it his ankle or his knee that he hurt? Knee.
Yeah.
He re-aggravates that to the point that, like, he can sort of play, but is clearly not 100%. And someone else for Golden State has, like a sprained ankle or something, to the point where they can play, but they're clearly not what they were a month and a half ago. And Cleveland beats Golden State in like 7 games just by being fresher and not injured, and like wins in controversial fashion. Like, if you're a Cleveland fan, like, they're going to love winning regardless. But, like, is there going to be like they won, but I don't know if it completely, like, is there going to be an element of that?
I think they're just they haven't won in such a long time. They'll take anything. They'll take a plane crash and say, Golden State, they killed the plane crash. I guess we're the only team left. We're here. We won it. Like, okay, let's say that does happen. They're in a plane crash and Golden State dies. Does Cleveland hold the victory parade like they usually would? Or wouldn't that be the worst way to win the title? Like, yeah, we won the title for the first time in 50 years, but we can't celebrate because the team died. That'd be the best way to
They might still hold a parade anyways.
Oh my God. And all the hot takes. How can you do this? They died. Why are you celebrating this?
Hottest take since that river in Cleveland caught on fire.
My goodness. And you mentioned, I think, in the chat the song. The song, they started it off with the documentary.
That's right. I really did. Like, it was the same one from the Cleveland, or from the Major League, the movie.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite sports movies ever. There's some that are, based off real things and yada, 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 that are also good. I like that it did not happen, and it does not take itself too seriously. And it's just a fun and entertaining movie. And, like, the first 4 times I watched it were all on cable TV, where they had censored some of the lines. And it was not until I was much older that I found out that the original line was not like Mays, but you hit like his sister, which still works. I mean, it makes sense. It's not like some when they dub over where it doesn't even make sense anymore. But it's more. I was surprised the first time when I heard it was like, you may run like Mays, but you hit like Shed. I was like, oh,
really?
Oh, they changed that.
I think that's what Paul Molitor said to Byron Buxton here before they set him down. You may run like a son of a bitch, but goddamn, you hit like fucking Michael Jordan. There's a 30 for 30 coming up, apparently, whether it's this year, next year, on the XFL. That should be something else. What I remember, it was the week after the Super Bowl in 2001. And the first week at NBC was, I looked at the ratings a while ago, and they were like 10, 12 million people watching this goddamn XFL the first week. Then the next week it was like cut in half, and then by week 4 or 5 it was nobody cared. But that first week, that was what I seem to remember, that was a fairly big deal. Saying what is this going to be? Because this was a little different.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things I remember about the XFL pretty clearly. I mean, you said it was in 01, so I think that means I would have been like 15 at the time. Was into, well, maybe sort of into wrestling at the time still, I don't remember. But, like, I can't think of a thing I've seen, or at least not many things, that were marketed as well as the XFL was early on. Where I remember it was like, it like played in perfectly with like the kind of WWE Vince McMahon like tough guy thing too. Where I remember it was like, I remember they had these commercials and it was like, we don't have any dome stadiums. Everyone's playing outside and
grass.
You can't fair catch on punts. You know, you gotta catch. And there were a few other. I don't remember what the other rules were, but there were a
like
few
the
others
kickoff
like
thing.
that.
The kickoff thing. The kickoff thing where they run and get the ball at the 50-yard line. Like, oh,
Yeah,
we're
the coin toss. Yeah, which is I wish they still did that for the coin toss.
We're gonna, and the thing they also do. I don't know what happened to it or what came of it. We're gonna put video, or we're gonna put the cameras in the cheerleaders' locker room. Like, you're gonna see something in there.
That's
like,
right.
What the hell are we? We're not gonna.
That's right. I forgot about that.
You're not gonna show anything anyway. I don't know what the hell they did with that. But,
yeah, I never watched that part of it. I think it's safe to assume they did, and it would have been news if they would have shown cheerleaders naked on national television. But like the thing, I wish I remembered some of the teams and team names. The only one I remember is the New York Hitmen. That they had a lot of team names that were more like, they weren't like all violent, but they were like tougher names than most of the others. But I remember the opening coin toss, two guys running and grabbing the ball thing. And I think the only reason I remember it is because it was a guy from Nebraska that recovered it. And then, like, the game started, and, like, to that point, like, everything had been perfect, played out exactly how the XFL had wanted. And then everyone started watching it, and it was just like, oh, this is... It's football in the sense that, like, of course, because they're playing football, these guys are so much less talented than the NFL guys, though. And, like, with college sports, like, there's plenty of guys in college sports that aren't any good and wouldn't have even been good enough to play in the XFL. But you've got, like, built-in interest in, like, you know, I followed this team for so many years, or I followed, you know, this conference because I live in the area for so many years and I know all about these teams. So there's like some sort of connection there. And it is that way with professional sports too. But when you're starting out from nothing and you don't have anything, like, you've got to have quality product on the field. And they just didn't have that, because why would you play in the XFL if you could play in the NFL instead and make way more money? You know, it's the same thing with the Arena Football League, that other than a few guys who made a lot of money, most of them, it was like, well, the NFL's paying more, so clearly I'm going to go there.
He had 8 teams. You mentioned the Hitmen of New York, New Jersey. You had the LA Extreme, Tommy Maddox. They won the deal. And that was the big deal was the $1 million championship game, which I don't know what that meant. Like, the entire team maybe split $1 million, which when you break it down isn't, I don't know, 10, 20,000 per player or whatever. So that was the $1 million game. Chicago Enforcers, the Memphis Maniacs, the Orlando Rage, and the San Francisco Demons. Sounds like some video game you can buy, some auction video game you can buy. And those are the team names.
Very interesting team names. I think the only other thing I can remember, I mean, I could probably sit here forever and think and remember a few more things here and there, but whoever the first 2 teams were that played in the first games, I remember that was when Rod Smart, the running back, you could put whatever you want on the back of your jersey, and he had Heat Hate Me. What's that? I can hear sort of stuff. Your voice is very, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's been digitally altered. Here, I'm going to try something. I'll leave and come back, and you just have to do like 15 seconds of filler. Your voice, the voice thing, still doing the weird. All right. But yeah, I know. I remember Rod Smart. He hate me. One of my. I wish I remembered. That's the only non-name that someone had that I personally remember. And then the only fun thing I remember about him then is that he went to the Carolina Panthers, was a kick returner, and in the Super Bowl that they lost to the New England Patriots after Vinatieri kicked a field goal with 15 seconds left or whatever, it was Rod Smart who had a chance on the return which was the final play of the game. I remember thinking, like, this would be the most fun thing ever if the XFLs, he hate me, won the Super Bowl for the Panthers by running a kickoff back for a touchdown. Clearly that did not happen because nobody knows who Rod Smart is, and the Panthers have not won a Super Bowl. But I remember thinking it would have been fun, and he would have had a real moment in the sunshine. What's that?
Well,
Hello? Yeah, it sounds interesting. I can make out about every second word you say because it's like it's gone through a voice modification thing. Like whenever somebody calls someone after they ransom their kid.
I can stop this. I stop it.
Can you say that in the type thing so I can read it? Because I can't make out what you're saying.
Okay, how big that was Oklahoma City on his first.
No, now I see that you typed something. I don't know why it didn't show up on mine. That was weird. I think the thing that was the biggest deal about Oklahoma City beating the Spurs in the semifinals of the Western Conference was that they just got absolutely rocked the first game. That the Spurs came out firing on all cylinders. Basic, I don't remember what the final. I think they won by 30. And they were hitting every shot they could take. And at that point in time, like everybody on the planet except the most diehard and delusional of Oklahoma City fans thought, yep, you know, San Antonio only lost one game at home in the regular season. Clearly, we're going to get a San Antonio, Oklahoma City Western Conference Finals. There's no way the Thunder can win. And then, like what just happens in sports sometimes, they came back. I'm sure they made some sort of adjustments. I don't know what they were. One also is that Oklahoma City just hit more of their shots on offense, which always helps a lot. And coming back to win, like, there's certainly been things I've been more confident in life, but I was pretty confident the Spurs were going to win after game one of the series. And I think it's been at least a little while since I've just been oh, yep, didn't get that right. That fooled me. Okay, I could hear that. Hello? I can see you, but I cannot hear you. Can you hear me? And now it's doing the thing again where I can hear you, but it's extremely staticky. And it sounds like someone changed the pitch on your voice. Fair enough. Blame it on stacking. Hopefully things